6 Town Hall meeting. It is now my pleasure to introduce your Orange County Mayor, Jerry L. Demings.
All right. All right, good evening, good evening. Trying to deal with my wardrobe malfunction here. Let me just welcome all of you here. I'm honored to be here tonight and to co-host this forum with the District Commissioner, Commissioner Siplin. We welcome you here. I know that there are a few elected officials who may be here also. I saw Mayor McDonald from the City of Maitland, and we also have Mr. Pierre Max Charles, the Consul General for Haiti here in this local community, so we welcome him here as well. Are there any other local elected officials here? I do see former State Senator Gary Siplin over here to the right as well, and welcome Senator Siplin as well. Let me just kick off tonight's forum. This is the second night in a row that we've had a town hall in our community to discuss a sales tax initiative that we plan to advance to the ballot essentially 1 year from now, November of 2020. There is going to be a presentation tonight where we will walk you through some of the issues, but this is designed to really be a listening session. We want to hear from you. It is my desire to address the transportation challenges that we have. In the last 4 or 5 months, I've had over 110 different community meetings or presentations to discuss about this in our community. And what I can tell you is that all of our citizens, when we ask them the question, do you believe that we have a traffic congestion problem, they answer in a certain way. So I want to ask you all the same thing tonight. How many of you think that we have a problem with traffic congestion? Raise your hands in the room tonight. Okay. Some of you are raising both hands. So that means that you're kind of screaming loudly, yes, I agree with you. Then I always ask the question, how many of you want your local elected leadership to do something about it? Raise your hands. Okay. Well, that's really what I'm endeavoring to do. What we have found from the various town hall meetings is that everyone doesn't agree what that solution looks like. So what we're doing, we're going to you. We're asking you, what should that solution look like? We don't all agree about how to pay for it. But I've decided, after looking at the history of our experience right here in Orange County, when we have tried various sales tax initiatives in the past, I've studied why they failed, because none of them passed. 1997 and 2003, believe it or not. It has been 16 years since we attempted to determine a dedicated funding source for transportation in our community. Now I want you to think about 16 years. In a 16-year period of time, this community has changed significantly. We have grown significantly. We now have nearly 1.4 million permanent residents. We're growing at a rate within Orange County at nearly 1,000 new residents each week. Within the region, we're growing by a net of nearly 1,500 new residents each week. Couple that with the tremendous tourism industry that we have. Nearly 75 million people come to visit us on an annual basis. All of that results in some increased demand for the traffic infrastructure that we have here. As the presentation goes on tonight, we will share with you some facts and some figures about how Orange County compares to other jurisdictions here within our metropolitan area, how we compare to other jurisdictions within the state of Florida in terms of taxation. Then we'll do a lot of listening to you tonight. It is my goal to, after listening, and we will have hundreds of these listening sessions before we're done, by working with our municipalities and others, we will come up with a specific plan of action with various programs or projects to address the transportation challenges that we have. We hope to finish that work during the early spring and then take it before the Board of County Commission for action. In order for this to be on the ballot, and tonight, this is about sharing information and educating you.
Transportation Initiative. I wanted to just say a few words because I know we have a long presentation. There are things that are being disseminated amongst our community that aren't all factual. So yeah, I'm glad to see a room full of concerned citizens getting information, educating yourselves, so when this, or if it happens to come on the ballot, you will have the ability to make an informed decision based on information that you have gathered and you have heard on your own. So again, I want to thank you for coming out, for understanding that it is not only your civic duty as a resident or as a citizen to understand the process and what is happening in your community. And I just want to say that I am glad to see you here, and hopefully your questions, whatever you have, you've written them down so you won't forget. And no question is a stupid question. So if you have a question, if you have some concerns, please voice them, because silence gives consent. So thank you again.
Perspective about Orange County. We have a population of approximately 1.3 million people, making us the 5th largest county, based on population, of course, in the state of Florida out of 67 counties. 90% of our population lives within the urban areas of the county, with the remaining 10% living in the rural areas. If you look at us by size of our land area, we cover about 1,000 square miles. And there are 13 municipalities that are part of Orange County, such as, of course, the City of Orlando, Towns of Edgewood, City of Maitland. I see Mayor McDonald here. And there are approximately 87% of our population that both live in Orange County and work in Orange County. So as we talk about transportation, it's important to understand that we need to focus on the importance of connecting our residents to their jobs. So how is transportation funded? The big picture here is that we've got 5 key funding sources for transportation. Historically, the traditional transportation funding sources have been the gas tax and the impact fees. Gas tax, of course, is the fuel tax that we pay each time we pump gas into our vehicles. Impact fees are the fees that developers pay to help mitigate the impact that that new development is going to have on our community. There are also a few restricted resources, such as community redevelopment areas or other trust funds and things like MSTUs, which are municipal service taxing units. These are funds that have been created, and at their creation, they were created for a specific purpose. More recently, because of the traditional transportation funding sources like gas taxes and impact fees not being able to meet our transportation needs, we have increasingly relied upon other sources such as property taxes and sales tax. Property taxes, also known as ad valorem taxes, are the taxes we pay on property or real estate that we own within Orange County. And then sales taxes are the taxes that we pay on certain goods and services that we consume. Now that we know what the transportation funding sources are, let's talk a little bit about how we use those existing funding sources. So when we think about transportation, there are a few key components of our transportation system in the county. They are roadways, resurfacing, traffic signals and intersection improvements, bicycle and pedestrian safety, street lighting, and mass transit. And so in the next few slides, I'll explain each of these components of the overall transportation system in a little more detail. First, starting with roadways, there are about 2,700 miles of county roadways within the county. And to give you some perspective on the cost of widening roadways, it costs more than $3 million per lane mile to widen a roadway. So if you're widening a roadway, say, from 2 lanes to 4 lanes, that really typically requires complete reconstruction of the road. So that 4-lane segment would cost about $12 million, and that would get you 1 mile of roadway, just doing the math. And so when we look at our roadway network within the county in terms of how they're operating, right now nearly 1 out of every 4 roads are failing. And that basically means they're carrying more traffic than they have the capacity to carry. And that's why we experience the congestion that, most people raise their hand and acknowledge that we're dealing with here in the county. I want to point out here that as we have this conversation, that our major highways, such as I-4, which is clearly well under construction right now, and our toll roads, which are funded by the tolls that drivers who use those roadways pay, we are not discussing those improvements this evening. What's equally important as building roadways is being able to maintain them in the future. And so the most visible representation of maintaining a roadway is the resurfacing of the pavement of that roadway, which currently happens every 12 to 15 years. The average cost of resurfacing a roadway is about $175,000 per mile. Last year, the county was able to resurface about 185 miles of roadways. But in reality, if we want to keep up with the average lifespan of a roadway and avoid the higher costs associated with rebuilding the roadways after they've deteriorated beyond their useful life, we really should be resurfacing them every 10 years, which means we really should have resurfaced about 270 miles of roadway last year. Another key component of our transportation system are our traffic signals. Intersections as well, and the technology that goes to support them. Sometimes when we experience congestion in traffic, it's not just the roadway itself, but the intersections that are causing us the challenges. And so the more efficient our traffic signals are, the more efficient our intersection designs are, the less delay we experience in traffic. Just looking at our inventory right now, there are 585 existing traffic signals within the county. And the average cost of a new traffic signal is $350,000. And in order to have our traffic signal systems function properly and really to communicate with each other, there's a whole nother level of infrastructure that is in place, and that's fiber optic cable. That's a critical part of the technology that has to exist for traffic signals to function properly. Right now, there are about 240 miles of fiber optic cable in place within the county. And this past year, we were able to budget about 15 intersections to improve with things like adding turn lanes or installing new signal improvements. Bicycle and pedestrian safety are also of critical importance to our system. Unfortunately, in recent years, Central Florida has consistently been ranked at the top of the list of most dangerous places in the nation for pedestrians, according to the Dangerous by Design report that's published annually by Smart Growth America and National Complete Streets Coalition. When we think about pedestrians, of course, the first thing we probably think about is the most basic part of our transportation that supports their needs, and that's sidewalks. Sidewalks cost approximately $264,000 per mile to build, and last year we were able to install 8 new miles of sidewalk. We also have a policy of incorporating bicycle facilities, such as bike lanes, and more recently, things like multi-purpose paths within our roadway corridors to provide better and safer accommodations for bicyclists in our transportation system. And so speaking of safety, as it relates to safety, street lights are also a key component of our transportation system. We are currently on the end of a 5-year program that is installing street lighting along some of our major roadways. Examples of major roadways would be something like Pine Hills here in this community. At the conclusion of that program, we anticipate lighting 85 miles of roadway, again, over a 5-year time frame. However, we know that there are well over 190 miles of unlit major roadways remaining. And so I'm not talking about our neighborhood streets when we walk out of our homes and the lighting in front of our homes. I'm talking about our major roadways in that regard. The other point I want to make very clear about street lighting is that there are also additional needs over and above that when we go back to talking about bicycle and pedestrian safety. There's lighting that now needs to be put in place at the locations where pedestrians cross the roadways at night. And so the lighting that you typically see out there is designed for cars to drive along a corridor and be able to see. If we really are going to move the needle on the pedestrian safety challenges that I just spoke about, we also have to focus on the pedestrian crossing locations as well. Our transportation system is multimodal, and what we mean by that is that there are multiple different ways that people need to move and get to where they want to be, and mass transit is one of those modes of travel. The county currently funds the LYNX bus system, utilizing property taxes to support their operations. And so right now, approximately $55 million in county funding is budgeted for LYNX in this current fiscal year. SunRail is also an existing mass transit mode that we have within our region. And although the Florida Department of Transportation currently funds SunRail operations, this responsibility is scheduled to transfer to local governments in the next couple of years, which will require an ongoing funding commitment from the county for continued operations of SunRail. There have also been a number of additional mass transit options throughout the county that have been studied in the past, such as additional rail connections, say in Northwest Orange County, connections to the airport. In this particular area, the need for enhanced transit along East and West Colonial Drive have been studied in the past for something like a bus rapid transit system or some other form of express transit. Also corridors like State Road 436. All of these have been studied in the past, and what has happened at the completion of those studies is that because there's no funding available to bring the projects online, we've had to essentially shelve the studies due to lack of funding. So I've touched on LYNX now, and I'm going to ask Mr. Jim Harrison, who's the CEO of LYNX, to come up and speak in more detail about LYNX and transit in general.
Thank you, Carla. As Carla said, I'm Jim Harrison, and Carla's done an outstanding job of kind of painting the overall picture of transportation and some of the challenges that Orange County and the region faces. I'd like to talk, as Carla said, just a little bit more about our transit system, and specifically I'll talk about LYNX first, and then we'll move on. LYNX is the working name for the Central Florida Regional Transportation Authority, which provides bus and other transit services to the county. LYNX serves the 3-county area of Orange, Seminole, and Osceola counties, which includes just over 2,500 square miles and over 2 million residents. LYNX serves this with about 300 buses running on about 70 routes throughout the Tri-County region. LYNX also has a number of flexible bus service areas called neighbor links that provide alternative service to folks across the region. And with this, LYNX provided about 25 million passenger trips last year. Just to talk a little bit about the funding, like most agencies, LYNX has both a long-term capital budget and day-to-day operating needs. The long-term capital funding comes primarily from federal and some state funding, but most of the funding for our day-to-day operations comes from local sources. Over half of our funding, $70 million each year, comes from the local governments. You heard from Carla, most of that from Orange County. Another 17% or so comes from passenger fares. This is a fairly typical percentage across the nation. And the rest of the funding comes from federal and state grants and advertising and contract services and the like. So let me talk a little bit about what that funding is used for. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the standard bus service, what we refer to as our fixed route service. And these are the large 40-foot and sometimes 60-foot buses that you see all around the county. You may not be quite as familiar with the rest of our family of services. NeighborLink, that I mentioned a little bit earlier, is the flexible service that covers areas that need transit but may not have the need or the ability to handle one of the large buses. I'm sure most of you have seen the limo system buses, which are part of the downtown Orlando BRT circulator. We have a van pool commuter services program, which is essentially a carpooling program. It's very popular, it's very successful, very efficient for our community. Lynx provides the Road Ranger service on I-4 that you see from time to time. And then Access Lynx is our door-to-door paratransit service for those that are most in need and disadvantaged in our community, and many of those that can't access other services. System-wide, Lynx has a little over 4,300 bus stops. Just about a quarter of those, less than a quarter, have shelters at the bus stops. The rest of them are pole stops, like you see in this picture. Lynx also has a number of 9 super stops and 7 transfer centers across the county, and of course the large central station downtown. Let me tell you a little bit about who rides Lynx, who takes those 25 million trips per year that I mentioned earlier. The majority of our riders are employed full-time, primarily in the service industries. Over 60% of our riders do not have access to a car. Most of our riders, over half of our riders, use Lynx as their primary method to get to work. And over half of our riders have to take 2 or more buses making a transfer to complete their trip. And this last issue is one of the most frequent challenges, one of the most frequent issues that we hear about with the Lynx bus service, is that it takes too long to make a trip, that you have to transfer buses and wait a long time between buses. And so let me talk a little bit about how often those buses run and the wait time between buses. The large majority of the bus routes servicing our region have wait times of 30 minutes or more between a bus. In fact, over half of those routes are 60 minutes, an hour between buses or more. And of the 70 routes that I mentioned earlier, only 5 of those routes, only 5 of those 70 have service every 15 minutes or less. One of the reasons that we see those long wait times between buses is that the Lynx transit fleet has not kept up with population growth in our region. And of course, you all know that Central Florida is one of the fastest growing regions in the nation. And as the region has grown, the funding for Lynx and the ability for Lynx to grow the fleet has not kept up. And of course, at the same time, as the region grows, there's more cars on the road, and the buses are waiting, of course, in the same traffic that the cars are. So less buses per person, more traffic, delays between the buses has grown. Also, just as an aside, as our fleet has not grown with the region, our buses have also gotten older. The federal guideline for replacement of buses is every 500,000 miles. over half of our fleet is over this mileage. Now, fortunately, we have excellent mechanics and service folks who keep these buses safe and running, but that gets more expensive with each year. So I've been talking about Lynx and some of the challenges that Lynx faces. Let me just touch very quickly on Sunrail, and Carla mentioned this. And Sunrail is, of course, the region's commuter rail system, serves the Lynx Tri-County area as well as one station in Volusia County. The route's about 49 miles long. It has 16 stations overall. If you take Sunrail, you are probably aware that it is geared towards work commuters. So it runs only on weekdays. And the train runs every 30 minutes during rush hour and in the morning and the evening. And then when it's not rush hour, in the middle of the day, later on in the evening, trains run only every 90 minutes to 2 hours. So that's again, a fairly long wait between trains. And of course, as you know, there's no weekend or holiday service. So let me wrap up this transit part of the discussion by just taking a look at how our region and our regional funding compares with other similar agencies and other similar regions across the state and across the nation. And this chart that's on the screen right now, if you can make that out, just shows how much regions, other comparable regions and other comparable agencies with similar populations, similar service areas, invest in transit. The column in pink, which is the second column there, shows the regional investment per person in the community. And you'll notice that Central Florida just happens to be at the bottom of that particular list. So on that note, I will wrap up my portion of the discussion, and I will welcome Mayor Demings back to the microphone for his remarks.
Okay, Jim, thank you. At this point, let me just kind of talk about a few things. Our ultimate goal is to come up with a solution that gives the traveling public options, better options. Historically, we have not done a good job of funding Lynx. You heard the presentation that Mr. Harrison gave you tonight. In order to get more people to ride the public bus or transit system, it has to be better connected. It has to have frequency. It has to be affordable. It has to be reliable to them. If you drive an automobile in this community, your commute can be very unpredictable. I live 13 miles from downtown Orlando from my office. I live out in the Dr. Phillips area. What should take me maybe 18 to 20 minutes to get to work, some days it takes that. Other days it takes 50 minutes. Sometimes it can take longer. If you think about the challenges that we have now, if we did nothing, you know, when the Magic was in the NBA Finals not long ago, one of the things that the Magic said, you know, there was this theme that said, if not us, who? If not now, when? You all remember that? So what I'm saying to our community is we collectively have the opportunity to come up with some solutions. If not us, who? If not now, when? If you want to find yourself, because you only have essentially one option, that's an automobile. If you want to go what should take 20 minutes and it becomes 2 hours, like in some metropolitan communities, you have a 2-hour commute to work, You have a 2-hour commute back home. What that does is it robs you of time that you have to spend with your family and do other productive things. When I ran to be mayor, I ran to bold things to address the issues. During the 13 months that I actively campaigned for mayor, from July of 2017 until when I was elected in August of 2018, I went to 1,000 different community meetings, forums, debates, et cetera, et cetera. And I talked to many, many people during that period of time. There were different things that our community said to me they saw as priorities. Transportation was one, which is why we're addressing that. Another was housing, another was job creation, economic development, et cetera, homelessness, and all the other social challenges that we have. When we have to take money from our general fund as a county to address the multitude of things that we have to address, frankly, it's just not enough money to address everything that we need. The reason why I didn't focus so much on raising property taxes, one, I don't think many people will support that, want to see the property taxes go up. A half-meal increase in our property taxes will result in revenues of about 7 tax, will result in revenues of approximately 600. So if we increase that, 27 million from the gas tax, possibly if we did a property tax increase of a full meal would be $144 million. The sales tax, 600 plus million. Over time, that would bring in the billions of dollars that it would take. I believe, based on much of the research, much of the prior studies that have been done, in order for us to do something transformational, if we want to be a world-class community, we deserve to have a world-class transportation system. When we compare ourselves to other metropolitan areas around the country, we're lagging. We're lagging behind because we don't have a robust transportation system. So when we compete to try to get other corporations to move here with high-paying jobs, a number of things, but they look at the overall quality of life that you have to offer in the community. They look at crime. They look at the talent pool that you have to fulfill the jobs. They look at the price of housing, whether you have a state income tax, local, other local taxes. They look at your tax structure. They look at the value that they will get on the return of their investment. People are moving here because they do view this area as a high-quality area in which to live in, where there's a lot of opportunity to start a business, grow a business. They look at your education system and all of those things that we have to make us a great community. I say in the words of Walt Disney that we should strive to be the experimental prototype community of tomorrow. That community where there's a convergence of innovation, of technology coming together where it meets culture. It meets diversity of experiences. So with this, again, I'm going to go back to why I think the sales tax is the best option. Because the Department of Business and Professional Regulation estimates that better than 51% of the revenue derived from the sales tax will be paid by the visitors who come here. If we look solely at the property tax, 100% of that burden is on the people who live here. We lose that opportunity. The people who are coming here to visit, we want them to share in the cost to build this system. So, but we can't get there. We can't improve the link system. When we compare our metropolitan area to other similar areas, I've been to Pittsburgh within the last year. In 15 days, it'll make 1 full year that I've been the county mayor. The most that I could be mayor is for 2 consecutive 4-year terms, 8 years. And 1 year of it is already gone. If I don't get about the business of taking care of the people and addressing these issues, that time that I have to be your mayor will quickly go by. So I have a sense of urgency about what it is that I'm trying to do now, what we are trying to do now as a community. But I want to compare us to Pittsburgh. Allegheny County is a county of about 700 square miles with about 1.2 million people. They have a commuter rail system, a well-connected commuter rail system, a bus rapid transit system. The difference between Pittsburgh and here is that our link system serves about 2,500 square miles, and it has about 300 buses. In Pittsburgh, they have 700 buses. So the frequency, the connectivity, the number of routes is more than double what it is here for roughly, if we stayed within Orange County alone, 1,000 square miles versus 700 square miles. But Link serves 2,500 square miles. Orange County is supposed to be a leader in this metropolitan community, this Central Florida area. We should be looking at regional solutions, and Orange County is the hub of the region. It would be very difficult for Lake County or Osceola County, any of these other counties, to be successful in addressing transportation without Orange County. Yes, Osceola advanced an initiative in May of this year, and when they advanced their initiative, it failed because their approach was different from what we're doing. Their approach was one in which the Board of County Commission decided to move forward with a sales tax initiative to address the transportation infrastructure in Osceola County. It's a county where their sales tax is currently 7.5%. Here in Orange County, what's our sales tax in Orange County? Y'all pay it every day, I think, when you buy stuff. It's 6.5%. What is it in Seminole County? 7%. What is it in Lake County? Okay, you get the picture. Orange County it has a wonderful value because our sales tax remains relatively low. Across America, the average sales tax in the 50 largest metropolitan communities is about 8.5%. In Florida, Hillsborough County passed a sales tax initiative in November. It went to November of last year. They're at about 8.5%. One thing that the other 50 metropolitan communities have is they have dedicated funding source. Links has been underfunded for years. So when I first got elected, took office, got on the board of Links, what I saw was the expectations of Links in terms of performance was unrealistic. You got good people who work there, but it has its challenges. In order to really address the issues that Links needs, it needs to know what its funding source is. Sunrail. The reason why more people don't ride Sunrail is because it doesn't have the connectivity. It doesn't go east and west in our community. In May of 2021, the cost of Sunrail is slated to be turned over from the state to the local partners. Volusia County wants out of the deal, but it would be Seminole County, Orange County, Osceola County, the city of Orlando. And Orange County will pay the lion's share of the operating costs of Sunrail. For Sunrail, have additional spurs that would go east and west or in other places within our community. Each one of those spurs, in order to improve the ridership, could cost, best guesstimates, anywhere from $200 million to $400 million. So if you had a spur that came off of Sunrail that went northeast, and one that went southeast, and one that went northwest, and one that went southwest, you're talking about $200 to $400 million per spur. So what I'm saying to you is, in order to have the kind of robust system that you saw some of the other cities, what they have is, it would take billions of dollars, not tens of millions, but billions of dollars in order to build that system. And we're not talking about just addressing the needs for the here and now, but the needs for the foreseeable future as we continue to grow. All of the economists and others who look at our growth patterns are indicating that we are going to continue growing as a community. I just want us to be practical about it. I believe that we cannot adequately address the housing challenges that we have with the affordability of housing in this community if we don't also address transportation, if we don't also address wages. We should be recruiting high-wage jobs to this community. We should be creating pathways for people to move up. The reason why people move outside of Orange County, in many regards, is because they believe that they can get better value for their dollar when they buy housing or they pay rent. And so that forces them into a situation where they have to now get into an automobile. And in Orange County, over 110,000 of our households have been identified as being chronically rent stressed, meaning that they pay more than 30% of the cost of their income for rent. If you couple the cost of transportation, owning an automobile, into that, for our low-wage earners, they're having a difficult time being able to afford rent, being able to afford health care, being able to afford food, being able to afford clothing. So what we're trying to do is, through a comprehensive approach, stabilize some of these things and reduce costs where we can, improve wages, et cetera. So what we're going to do tonight is, I wanted to kind of give you some additional information. We're going to go to you now, because I want to hear from you. What is it that you like to see? Now, there's a survey. There are surveys that we have been distributing. You can go online and complete the surveys. What we know at this point from those who have completed the survey is that the majority of those who have completed it have said to us that they desire for us to address and to improve a mass transit system. We'll have to see where you stand tonight. Okay? So I'm going to turn it back over to Jane Wartrell. She will moderate this portion as we will go to you, the audience, and hear about what you think are potential solutions to some of the challenges that we have. What you might want to see in the way of an improved transportation system here in Orange County. Okay, Jane Wartrell.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of slides. Just we want to hear from you, as the mayor said. This meeting is an opportunity to hear your ideas. We want to hear specific transportation solutions to improve our community, your community. This meeting is not a session to hear from Orange County staff about specific transportation plans. We need your input in order to develop a plan, and there's no plan without your help. So if the time comes, it'll be in just a few minutes, Jeff Williamson will be standing here with a microphone. Please come on up, raise your hand, come on up to him. We'll get your comments. And it's going to be 2 minutes it'll be timed to get your solutions. And please be brief so we can hear from as many people as possible. Now, experts are here from Orange County. They're sitting over here, and they will be there to talk to you one-on-one if need be. But before this happens, I want to call back up Carla Bell Johnson, all right, who will be seated as we get to all of you. So we will relax and take your comments. Jeff, where are you? Okay. You see those boards over there, ladies and gentlemen? They fall into a bunch of different buckets. Public transportation, pedestrian and bike safety, roads, technology, traffic signals and streetlights, and intersections and others. So as you're talking to Jeff, you raise your hand, go on over to where Jeff is, and give us your comments, and we will be more than happy to write them down. While people are lining up, I have some comment cards that folks filled out in the beginning. Ms. Anderson, her transportation issue is she wants proper drainage for our roadways. Proper drainage for our roadways, if we could write that down. Also tonight, can we just get a show of hands from the audience? How many of you ride Lynx? Okay, we have about 10, 12 people. Anybody here ride Sunrail? Okay, a couple show of hands. What about your car? Is that how everybody gets around? If you could just raise your hands to let us know how you primarily commute. Okay, the vast majority of people here are commuters via motorists. Jeff, who do we have for our first commenter?
We have Evelyn first, Jane.
Hi, Evelyn. Welcome. Please tell us your solutions.
My solution is that I have been following this Kurt Monroe story, and I know you have been telling people it will help resident well. As a resident of District 6, I want you to know that I don't need that road. It is not worth it to us for the country to spend money on it. First, spend money on our problems before you giving money to Universal for their road. And I just want to say that I am a grandmother and I have 2 grandkids, and I stay at 916 Grand Street, and I have to take my grandkids to school every morning. And as I'm backing out the road that I stay on, it is really bad. I mean, it is so bad that when you drive it, if you don't be careful, it's like a dent, like you'll go down into that dent, and then you can mess your front end up. And sometime when the bus is coming down that road, a lot of cars have to pull on the side in order to let the bus go first. Then we can go next, because that's how bad the road is.
And you're telling me, and what is the name of that street? Is it
916 Grand Street.
G-R-A-N-D?
G is in go, R-A-N-D.
D, not Grant.
Yes,
Grant.
ma'am.
We're writing that down. Thank you very much,
Yes, it is
Evelyn.
really, really bad.
Okay.
And you know, and I just look, I know we say you had 2 minutes or whatever.
Yes.
But I feel that, you know, if y'all gonna do anything, y'all should do it for the
We will
peoples.
definitely put that down
And that's
to
what
look
we
at.
need. We need for you all to work with us, not against us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Okay, Jane, since you brought up the universal issue, the road, if you will, why don't we just deal with the elephant in the room? Let's talk about it. And because at these different town hall meetings, we've had people come up and they bring up that issue. So I'm going to ask Carla to come up and just share some of the facts about it. But also, as I listened to her, there was one argument: we don't want you to do anything about the universal road or that corridor. But in my neighborhood, we got a traffic problem here, and I want you to do something about it here. What you're going to find is when we look across the county, it's going to have to be about your particular experience. And when we get to November of next year, if you don't see a benefit to you in the storyline and the project list that we will advance forward, you will vote no. If you see where somehow you're going to benefit from it, you would vote yes at that period of time. And so our job is to hopefully get you to the point where you can see yourself in that narrative of how this will benefit you more directly. So, but Carla, let's just have Carla go ahead and kind of address some of the facts associated with that.
So thank you, Mayor, and I'm happy again to just come and educate you on the topic of Kirkman Road, although that is obviously a separate and distinct issue from what we are focused on tonight, which is this transportation initiative. I think it's helpful because it's come up so many times to share the facts about Kirkman Road. So big picture here is that Kirkman Road Extension is a project that has been a part of the county's plan for almost 20 years now. It is a project that will extend the existing Kirkman Road that many of us drive on today south from Carrier Drive down to Universal Boulevard. It will be an 8-lane major roadway. It will include a dedicated transit corridor, 2 lanes through the middle of it to service the transit needs of Lynx and other transit operations. And it really is intended to address existing traffic problems and certainly, as all of our roadways that we build, to plan for the future. It is proposed as a public and private partnership, and this is when we leverage public dollars with dollars that the private sector brings to the table so that we get more value. The total project cost is about $315 million. The county is contributing a share of that. In total, that would be about $125 million from the county. That is coming from 2 sources: the International Drive Community Redevelopment Area, or the CRA. $60 million is coming from the CRA, and then there's another $40 million related to that CRA that is based on future growth in the area. And then $25 million is coming in the form of impact fee credits. And I talked a little bit about impact fees before in talking about transportation funding sources. The state of Florida is also contributing to the project through the Florida Job Growth Grant. $16 million is coming from the state. And then Universal is responsible for the balance of the project costs. Now, there's been a number of statements made that I've seen in print in some cases, and in some cases I've heard public testimony to this effect. And I wanted to just, we wanted to just make sure we were very clear on what the facts are relative to Kirkman Road. Commissioner Siplin referenced misinformation, and we just want to, again, clarify or correct some of that misinformation. One of the statements that I've seen and heard is that Orange County is building a road for Universal Studios. And so, as I mentioned earlier, the reality of this is this has been a long-standing regional roadway need within our community, and it spans over decades. It is going to provide better access to Lockheed Martin with their 6,000 employees, to the Orange County Convention Center. We, Orange County, operate the Orange County Convention Center. The 2nd largest convention center in the United States needs this access. The UCF Rosen College of Hospitality Management and their thousands of students need better transportation to get to school. There are more than 75,000 employees that work within the International Drive Resort area. And then there are about 17,000 residents that live within the International Drive Resort area. So this is not a road that is for Universal. This is a road that really serves our community as a whole. Certainly it serves Universal, but it serves our community as a whole. And there's no public roadway that benefits just one business. We all use the roadways today. The second thing we've heard is that Orange County is giving Universal $125 million. And so here's the facts related to that. The county is not simply giving Universal $125 million. This, as I mentioned before, is a public-private partnership, and the county is contributing our share to the cost of the Kirkman Road extension. And those final agreement terms are currently being negotiated. Another point that I've heard and seen is that Orange County wants to raise your taxes to give Universal $125 million. That is not the case. Here are the facts. There is no funding from this proposed sales tax initiative that is intended for the Kirkman Road extension at all. Funding plan for the Kirkman Road extension was something that was developed long before Mayor Deming's recent discussions regarding a sales tax initiative. And the funding sources, as I mentioned before, for the county's contribution is the International Drive Community Redevelopment Area, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment, and those impact fee credits that I referenced. Another bit of misinformation that's out there is that Orange County is using housing funds for the Kirkman Road extension. So that is not the reality here. The reality is the county is not using housing funds for Kirkman. We're using community redevelopment area funds and impact fee credits, not housing funds. In this particular case, the CRA, again, the community redevelopment area, these are funds that come from the International Drive area. That CRA was created more than 20 years ago, back in 1998. And there was a specific purpose that this CRA was created for. And the state requires you define why you are creating a CRA when it is created. In this particular case, that specific purpose was for transportation improvements within that defined area. And it's about 7,500 acres of property. The way CRAs work is the property taxes that are collected within that defined area are then used in that defined area to address whatever that previously defined problem was. And in this particular case, that problem was transportation. The other statement that I've seen in print is that the International Drive CRA is a special fund for Universal. Again, that's not the fact here. The iDrive CRA is not a special fund for Universal. As I mentioned before, it was created more than 20 years ago, and it is created with the sole purpose of funding transportation improvements within that defined area. They're the property taxes that are collected, and they are used for that previously defined problem, which in this case was transportation. A few additional facts about the International Drive CRA, because I've had the opportunity to manage this CRA for a number of years. This one has funded a number of different transportation improvements within the area. If you've ever driven on John Young Parkway was 6-laned with this CRA. International Drive on the south side was 6-laned with this CRA. There was a brand new roadway built called Destination Parkway. That was a brand new 4-lane corridor. There have been a number of improvements within the Tangelo Park community to address cut-through traffic and pedestrian needs within that neighborhood. There's been a traffic signal system and a number of other sidewalks and pedestrian safety needs throughout the district that have been implemented over several years with this particular CRA. And CRAs are not unusual. There are about 220 of them throughout the state of Florida. In Orange County in particular, we've got about 15 of them that are created to address various issues. So if you've been through Apopka, you've been through a CRA. If you've been through Eatonville, Maitland, downtown Orlando, Winter Garden, Winter Park, all of them have CRAs that were formed to address their specific needs. And the last thing I want to touch on is a statement that I've seen, which is that Orange County should use tourist development taxes to fund the Kirkman Road extension. And the facts behind that are the tourist development tax. This is what the tourists who stay within our community pay when they stay at hotels. The uses of that tax are defined by the Florida state statutes. There was recent legislation that was passed that allows TDT, tourist development tax funds, to be used for infrastructure improvements, but there are certain conditions that you have to meet in order to use them for that purpose. And those conditions includes requiring 40% of all of the TDT that is collected within an area to go towards tourism promotion. So that's marketing, and that's really what this organization called Visit Orlando does for Central Florida. Right now, we give Visit Orlando funding to support that to the tune of about 25% of the TDT collection. So we are well under that 40% requirement in order to use TDT for transportation. So I wanted to make that very clear. Right now, Orange County does not meet that requirement to use TDT for infrastructure. So with that, I just wanted to clarify, correct, and hopefully educate everyone on Kirkman Road. And now, most importantly, we want to hear from you about what you see as important in terms of needs and priorities.
Thank you, Carla. That was very educational. Thank you, everybody. I hope we're all learning this together. So now, Jeff, who do we have?
Jane, we have Charles.
Charles, welcome.
Emergency Rapid Response Team. Well, I'm going to try keeping this brief as possible, but here's your congestion right here. Road experiences found out are for public transportation. In other words, how to create the perfect road. Turn-off lanes for buses should also be incorporated with the bike lane. You get more buses, less cars, more bikes, and more buses. So let's go with what goes on, with why we have so much problems with our transportation, especially congestion. It's called overpopulation, which increases traffic congestion, increases air, ground, and water pollution. In other words, your groundwater is polluted. It will have lead in it, also from, guess what? Gas leaking and oil leaking into the soil, which creates water. And then it also increases pedestrian death. Right now, #1 in the United States. Congratulations, Orange County, for that one. Increases road rage. When you have more population, you have more cars, more road rage. Increases insurance, increases traffic crashes, increases and decreases emergency response. In other words, you have a 30-minute response with police, fire, and whatnot. Decreases public safety. More funding needed to fix residential businesses, because guess what? We have hurricanes, and we're going to have $1 trillion next year if we have a Category 5. Road expansions need 1/4-mile bus stops, bike lane, more buses to decrease congestion, parking garage, populated bus stops, and legally can decrease people moving into state. Right now, 300,000 people moving into the state of Florida. Got to decrease that. No more coming to Florida, sorry. We are closed because we have 300,000, and that creates, what does it do? Stop overpopulation and reckless growth, will destroy economy, ecology, and have a 400% increase in homeless, out of work employees. Overpopulation hurts businesses and makes the worst thing, wildlife and plant life, extinct.
Thank you,
In other
Charles.
words, you want to survive, we got to stop overpopulation.
Charles, thank you. If you could take those sheets over to the people so we could put some of that down, like the bus lanes and some of your good ideas with bike lanes. So please go over and meet with our people, Charles. Thank you. Charles, we have to get to the next person, I'm sorry. But go on, take your suggestions over there. Jeff, who do we have?
We have Leslie Jane.
Leslie, welcome.
Hi, good night. My name is Leslie Rodriguez. I'm living in Orlando, in Americana Boulevard.
You live in Americana Boulevard?
Yes.
Okay.
Today I'm here because it is unacceptable that Universal wants $125 million to build a road and take control over iDrive and also increase the taxes. It makes me worry who will control the decision about how to spend the money after we raise our tax. Today Universal asking for $125 million. How much is Universal going to ask later? Who will you guarantee decision will be made for us? This is a real problem in transit, and I pass from this park every day, and right now it's impossible to go with less time to go home or go to work.
So you were talking about the congestion on Americana.
Yes,
we
and
should write that down. Okay.
Yes, also the tolls.
Okay.
The toll is coming, it's a real problem,
Okay.
and we can accept all that. We don't have received the enough pay, like the mayor say, the low wages, and they supposed to fix many problems in the
Okay.
Orange County before giving away money from our taxes.
So please take
Thank
your
you.
suggestions over to the people on the wall so they can write down on the easels. Thank you. Jeff, who do we have?
Jane, we have Bolitha.
Yes, my
Welcome.
name is. Hey, oh, sorry. Okay, do that for me. I got you. My name is Belitha Jarrett. I am
Hi.
a resident in District 6 for 27 years.
Wonderful. How many people have been in District 6 for over 20 years? If you could rate. Great. You have a lot of friends here.
They're
Okay.
not my friends. I'm talking about this right now.
Okay.
We're talking about Mayor Demings. I have a question. You keep talking about this restriction funds. It sounds to me like you should have less restriction. I'm asking this question today. Will you commit to let the restrictions fund, like the International Drive, the CRA that we've been talking about, let it sunset? In other words, let it expire. We asking that you let it expire because all of the funds is going to projects that you relieve tax burden. If you don't let all of this fund go to this CRA and all of this, have it restricted, we want it to come back to the community. Will you commit to vote to have the iDrive CRA expire when it's scheduled to expire? It should expire in 2028. We asking for the vote today for you to commit to us that yes, you will let it expire. Then we can talk about where else we want our money to go. I'm a taxpayer for 27 years, and it's not going to us. I've been an employee in the same field of work that you say in the food and beverage industry for 25 years. I'm a working citizen. I have a business in the District 6 as well. So I'm asking for you to commit today. We want to answer today. Will you commit to let it expire?
Thank you. Jeff, who do we have?
Marty.
We have Marty, Jane.
Hi, Marty. Welcome.
I've lived in Orange County since the mid-1980s. My question concerning the Sunrail and Lynx provisions of this funds. Osceola and Volusia recently voted them down, their sales tax increase to fund transportation. Yes. If we fund it, if we increase ours and it goes there, we're going to be benefiting the people in those counties. And we live here 7 days a week. We're going to be paying that tax 7 days a week, just not those who are just commuting in. I understand they need it, but they are a regional transportation system. They need to be paid by the region, not the Orange County taxpayers alone. Secondly, we are a contributor state when it comes to the federal gas tax. The mayor addressed the local gas tax, but for the federal gas tax, we give more than what we get back. I know our Democrat and Republican congressional delegations don't agree on much, but they could at least agree on making sure we get dollar for dollar, and I'd like to think our mayor has an inside track with one of those members of Congress to make sure we get back dollar for dollar. That's the only way it's fair. More people moving here from the Northeast. We need that money more than they do. So I'd like to make sure our members of Congress, as another funding source on top of our tax dollars, our sales tax, are bringing that money into the county as well. We need to look at that federal funding. Okay. So and lastly, is this going to be on the September ballot or November?
It's going to be November 3rd of 2020.
All right, thank you.
And but your solution would be to go after more federal dollars that we aren't getting enough back?
We're a contributor county because we don't get dollar for dollar. I would at least settle for dollar. Congressman Wentz, I think it was, he's from the East Coast, was recently on TV saying Congress sometimes siphons that off to other spending needs in Congress. Not all of it goes back to transportation needs. That's a congressional problem, but we have a big delegation from Florida. Our Florida delegation should be working on it.
Okay, thank you, Marty.
Jane, we have Gino. Take some up, Gino.
Hey, Gino.
How you doing today?
Good.
This question is for Commissioner Siplin. I'm also interested in the iDrive CRA because the last time we spoke, you mentioned to me that that the state is in control of the CRA and that the county, the committee basically, doesn't have control over it. But if the committee is able to get control over it, I wonder if they're able to guarantee us that we'll let the CRA expire in 2028.
Jean, do you have, so that is your transportation solution? Because we're here to gather solutions. Do you have something
I'm here to ask Victoria Siplin about the iDrive CRA. Is she willing to answer?
This is to gather solutions, and Commissioner Siplin is waiting to hear some of the solutions, so we thank you for your time. If you have a minute 13 left.
So I'm asking Ms. Siplin a question, though, and this is involved in it.
But I'm sorry, but if you have something else to say other than that, we'll take that down. Otherwise, we thank you for your comments.
That's right.
Commissioner Siplin, I'm sure will be available later on, but right now we're here to get solutions. So Gina, we're sorry. You have 42 more seconds. Otherwise, thank you.
Once again, lack of respect.
Sally. Jen, we have Sally.
Welcome, Sally.
Welcome, ma'am. Now, I actually need, for everything that's been said here and things that need to be challenged, I need 2 hours, not 2 minutes, to properly address some of the things that are slightly slanted and misleading that were said here today. There's definitely some incomplete information. And I totally agree that people need to be totally informed and educated about what's going on here so they can make the good decision. And in the words of Thomas Jefferson, if you expect the nation to be ignorant and free, you expect what never was and will never be. And we got to make sure people understand we need to be more informed. And you got to do your own research. Do not depend on what you're hearing here. I can challenge a lot of what's being said, such as toll taxes. Now, we don't want to talk about toll roads because they're state roads, but the toll taxes fund a lot of expressways here in Orange County, where you live, and these are the people who pay for it. So stop saying toll taxes don't matter. We pay them. How many people pay a couple $100 a month for tolls? Then the other thing, reckless growth management, reckless spending, those are the reasons why we have the transportation problems we have today. Sunrail was totally mismanaged. It's been a mess. The gentrification's out there. Oh, by the way, in case the mayor's interested, I left the bag of Hershey's Kisses on the back table. They're for anybody who wants them. And then we need a true transportation forum. Mayor, are you willing to have a true open discussion where you say these things and I get to answer you? I get to challenge what you're saying because you're not telling all the truth. You have big gaps in what you've said. We want the truth and we want real solutions. And tourist taxes should be used for transportation. Not enough of them is, and it's up to the municipalities and the people of Florida to tell those fools in Tallahassee the tourists should pay for the roads. Help us. Corporate taxes. Why are 99% of the corporations not paying any taxes? They should help pay. We keep giving the breaks to them. When are you going to put us top on the list? When do the people get to be first on the list? Why are you giving money to the NFL? It's going to cost you more money than you'll ever get in the revenues and sales taxes for that, too. Time and time again, we're the ones getting run over by the system, and misinformation is being given here. I'm challenging you, Mayor Demings. I want a real forum here where I get to challenge the things you're saying and what's being presented here.
Thank you, Sally. All right, Jeff, who do we have?
Jane, we have Tiffany.
Hi, Tiffany. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. As it relates to the expansion of links, as a suggestion, I certainly want to make sure that if this sales tax is implemented, that the funds specifically go to operations. And when I say operations, not operating of the office and office staff, but the links drivers, the buses, the infrastructure, the scheduler, the things that are actually going to expand links and make it more robust, and not the office. The office needs to figure out how to maintain itself. Links is a business, and it needs to figure out how to run itself as a business. In addition to that, in terms of the smaller communities within Orange County, such as I live in Holden Heights, for instance, we want to make sure that we're looking at things like pedestrian walkways and red lights and things like that, because you're trying to expand links, but that's ultimately going to mean that there are more buses on the road. There may be more cars on the road. And how are we accounting for that new congestion when Orange County already has a lot of congestion? We already don't have enough roads. We're constantly expanding, but at the current time, it's not sufficient. So what are we going to do to make the roadways safe for our children and sufficient for our residents? So I want to make sure that those things are kept in mind.
Yeah, but and your big thing is safety.
Correct.
And more buses, right?
More buses,
Yes.
ultimately.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Yes.
Jane, we have Cynthia.
Welcome.
Hi. When I was a kid, buses ran every 30 minutes. Now they run every hour in our community when they're not broken. We have to wait for a bus to come to our community every hour according to the schedule. It's even worse for people who are disabled and they need accessibility and they have to go to dialysis, and when they have that cool down period and they have to wait, and a person that's supposed to be working for Access Links leave them at that property because they're not there within that 5-minute time range. That is unfair. If you're going to suggest that we have not property taxes, but our sales taxes raised, what I want to see is that the money that you already have allocated currently now between the city and the county now remain as part of the funding, but when you use that sales tax, we'd like to see that sales tax in addition so that we can have better transportation, better service, more frequent routes in our community. We don't have that. If you're going to do a Sunrail and you want to do east and west, You can do it for the East-West Expressway. It can run parallel to that, but we don't want our houses destroyed in our community, because anytime you're doing new construction, you want to come in and tear down the houses. We already have a housing situation as it is, and we don't need to lose more housing because you're trying to do more infrastructure that's coming through our community. So what I would like to see is safer buses, because they're always broken down. So it doesn't always put the rider at risk, but it puts the person that's driving at risk. So we need something better than what we're getting now, but we need accountability.
Thank you, Tiffany. I think your point is well taken. Thank you.
Jane, we have Eric.
Welcome.
Welcome. You already know why I'm here once again.
Yes.
The very first meeting we had at the Lynx station, I addressed an issue, but now I'm here to address two things. But before I do that, Jim was talking about the budget.
Yes.
Now I have some numbers here. The Lynx budget from Orange County. 2017, you gave Lynx $43,503,389. 2018, you gave Lynx $44 million. This year, you give a Lynx about roughly $47 million, and for 2020, you're going to give Lynx $55 million. How I get these numbers? Someone from the county gave them to me. But going back to Jim, Mr. Harrison, he was talking about the funding. Now, I'll concur with what Tiffany said earlier about giving it to the operations. Right. One issue that I have, November 6, 2019, at 6:11 p.m., there was a situation on the Lynx bus where the driver, I was on the same bus, the driver made a wrong turn, and a lady injured both of her knees and had to go to the hospital. I have the video footage if you'd like to see that as well. My problem is, you talk about the old buses in the fleet. My thing is, buses are always broken down. They're never on time, and people who have to use the bus are always either late for work, late for school, and that's an issue, that many of the residents have. So my thing to Jim is, I understand what you're doing as the interim CEO of Lynx, but I believe that you can do more. The operations can do more. And Mayor Dimmons, I believe that you can give more money to Lynx as well than the 46 and 55 million that you're giving Lynx right now.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Jane, we have Kevin.
Hi, Kevin. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor Demings, for having this forum, as well as Commissioner Siplin. My name is Kevin Davis. I am the owner of Trinity Eco Energy Solutions. We were the first fuel supplier on the Orlando International Airport expansion project. One of the things that Mayor Demings has mentioned is his desire to see innovation and technology, which obviously directly in this day and age relates directly to alternative energy and alternative fuels. Currently, there is a 2014 to 2020 sustainability plan that GOA has to implement a number of alternative energy initiatives. One of those initiatives includes the implementation of aviation biofuel. Mayor Demings has mentioned that one of the things that he is leaning more towards in terms of fundraising for all of these transportation initiatives is to have a fuel tax implemented, which I believe you said was your favorite choice. Although biofuels does increase the cost of fuel, whether it be for road transportation or aviation fuel, we are living in a day and age where there is a growing group of individuals called super greenies who spend more money on things that are green and that promote a healthier economy as well as ecology. I would like to see a greater implementation of biofuels into the transportation system. And I would like to know more about how minorities can participate in the transportation initiatives contracts for transportation as well as for aviation.
Thank you, sir. So your solution would be to look into biofuels. We'll write that down. Thank you.
Jane, this is Dave.
Hey, Dave, welcome.
Thank you. I was up at MIT about a year ago, and I ran into a program called Transit X. It's overhead transportation. I'm glad that the mayor mentioned Disney, because I would say, what would Walt do? And what Walt would do right now is he would say, let's go overhead. Let's get off the roads. So Transit X is lightweight pods that go under a rail. It's privately funded, so it doesn't cost the city or the county anything. It's extremely safe. We get rid of this problem we've got with so many accidents and so many fatalities. It has a tiny footprint. All we need is the air rights. It runs at about 14 feet above the road on a rail, under a rail. And if you want to see it, I've got a great video. Okay. Just go to transitx.com. Somebody's going to start this somewhere in the world. Why not here? Why not us? It's going to be in China before it's here, even though it was invented at MIT. I took it to Disney, but it was too late. They put in that Sky Ride that's on a cable. Transit X would have been so much better. So I challenge everybody on your phone right now or when you get home, go to transitx.com and you'll be sold. It's high speed. There are no stations, only stops. So you call it on your phone, just like you call Uber or Lyft. So transitx.com, look it up. Okay. Let's start talking about something that's really innovative instead of just putting people more on bus rapid transit, which has failed everywhere it's started. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave.
All right. Welcome, ma'am.
Jamie F. Barbara. Come a little bit closer.
Welcome.
Come a little bit closer to me, Barbara.
I've been here since 1942. I have seen lots of changes. Not all of them are positive. What people come here to Florida for, so much has been destroyed. I could speak on every subject that's already been spoken on so far, but right now, my biggest concern at this moment is our water. With these roads, I'm seeing areas flood now that I had not seen being flooded out in the 50s and 60s and all. Kirkman Road, 408, Highway 50 have caused flooding in areas like West Side Manor, which of course that housing development should have never been built in that swamp area to begin with, because I can remember in the 50s when that area was all green pasture land, when other areas in Winter Park and Maitland were brown, and Arla Vista was brown too, sand and sand spurs. But anyway, we are having areas in Pine Hills, Arla Vista, Gotha, and so forth that are flooding out that shouldn't be flooding because the runoff water is not being handled properly. And it should never, ever go into our lakes. And it shouldn't go down straight canals like they do. It should weave around naturally like God intended rivers to do, which Barnett Park has done something in that way here at Lake Lawn and planted vegetation that will help absorb this runoff water.
So Carla, if I'm hearing you right, because another person wrote in about proper drainage for our roadways. So you're also in that camp, that one of your solutions would be proper drainage.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Jane, this is Charmian.
Welcome.
Hi. Okay. Well, I don't have a solution of how to afford it, but when you do come, I just got a suggestion that when you add crosswalks, like on Pine Hills, to include lights, flashing cautious lights, because I go up and down Pine Hills to go to work and home, and it's just not safe for pedestrians to walk or motorists to stop when they actually come up, when they finally see a pedestrian standing there. Another for links access, technology for a mobile app that, of course, Access Links is for the disabled. To have a mobile app and visual for vision impaired, because right now it sucks. I can barely see it. Just imagine a vision impaired person. And another thing is to hold a third party. Another one is links, Access Links. I know you go with third party like Uber and Lyft and cab. Hold them accountable for, I guess, following the guidelines when disabled. I guess don't forget about the disabled, that they need to follow the guidelines too. Although they are helping you, assisting you, hold them more accountable for guidelines of picking up the disabled. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Great suggestions. All right.
Jane, this is Charlie.
Hey, Charlie.
Hello, good evening, everybody. So I've been a resident of District 6 for the last 11 years. If the restrictions of the community redevelopment area, or the CRA, can directly go to businesses, can I count on Ms. Siplin and Mayor Demings to make sure that the CRA funds are freed up in 2028? The plan, from my understanding, is to unrestrict funds like the iDrive CRA so that residents aren't the only ones carrying the bill. I think it's extremely important to end the restrictions on the restricted funds. This is a solution. It's not just me coming up here to talk. $125 million allocated to go to Universal Studios to help build the roadway. There has to be enough money in there to fix the Wi-Fi on the Blinks public transportation with enough money left over to add USB charging ports. We can do so much more with that $125 million right here in the great state of, or the great county of Orange. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Jane, it's our friend Joanne.
Joanne, hello, welcome.
Hi. Yeah, I would like to have Sunrail train on 7 days a week, including nighttime, holidays, and weekends, because I'm tired of every time I go out there on Seminole County, just to walk on weekends and holidays. It makes me hurt, and sometimes it hurts my back and my legs and stuff. Please mention Sunrail, because you didn't mention it the last time we were at Link Central Station. I wasn't happy about that at all. And don't forget 1% sales tax, vote for it. And we want the train to go to, what do you call it, up there.
Volusia?
Yes, Volusia County. It's DeLand.
Oh, DeLand, okay.
Yes, we want the train to DeLand too, so we can finish phase 2 and phase 3 and so on and so forth. That's the airport. Don't forget. We need 24 hours bus and train service, including holidays, weekends, and nighttime, so that no one will be stranded in the heat like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joanne.
Thanks, Joanne. Thank you. Jane, this is Joseph.
Welcome, Joseph.
Okay. I've lived in some of the highest congestion areas around LA, New York, Memphis, Atlanta. With your toll roads here, how many of them you've seen be clover leafs like they are in the rest of the country? They're all stoplights, which is adding to the congestion problems. They'll go out there and they'll make e-pass lanes, they'll make side lanes for paying, they'll do landscaping. They need to be clover leaves because most of your traffic congestion is people getting on and off the toll roads. So that's one issue.
So a larger intersection, is that what you're saying?
Clover leaves like they've got for all the other major, if you
We're
go to
writing that down.
Yeah, if you go to LA, they're all clover leafs. Most of the other major cities, they're clover leafs. When you get on or off the toll roads, they're stoplights. That's part of your major, people are backed up because the lights are switching back and forth to let people off the toll roads. That's one way to cut back on the congestion. The second one, I don't know if there's been any feasibility studies done on it, but Jacksonville voted to get rid of all their toll roads. The mayor ran on the principle of getting rid of all the toll roads. Why don't you do a study and find out how much congestion would be eliminated by me and hundreds of other people using the service roads because we don't want to pay the tolls, which is adding to the traffic problem. How much of the traffic problem would go away if you got rid of the tolls? 2 items.
Thank you.
One last one.
Oh,
One last one on the
please.
gas tax.
Yes.
If you go out there and Google gas station prices and look at the gas prices for California, which is in the $4 range, other places, the spread, 20 cents between regular and mid-grade, 10 cents between mid-grade and premium. For some reason in Florida, it's a 30-cent spread between each one. And in some cases, you're seeing people have jacked it up where it's a 35 to 40% spread between each grade of gasoline. So I don't know where that is coming from, whether it's the owners, whether it's state taxes, but that spread is not the same as the rest of the country. Google the gas prices and you'll see.
Thank you.
This is Gretchen Jane.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I would like to say, according to what you were showing up there, one of my suggestions would be, it's not going to be a permanent solution, but to maybe increase the advertising revenue at least to a double-digit percentage for the links, so that the businesses as well as the residents can participate in making our transportation and our infrastructure better.
You mean getting more publicity about it? Can you be a little clearer on
Well,
that?
you had in terms of revenue on one of your slides,
right.
Of all of the revenue that was coming in, the lowest was the advertising, which was only 3%. Maybe try to make that 10%, or at least something in double digits to equate with everything else.
Okay.
That would be one. The second thing, as a high school student working up the street at McDonald's, one of the things that I was told in terms of getting traffic lights in certain needed areas, that there had to be 7 fatalities in order to get a traffic light. And I wanted to know if that was still the case, or what does it take to get a traffic light in much needed areas. That's the second thing. The third thing is that we talk about the congestion, and one of the reasons that there's congestion, we can't compartmentalize the transportation issue, because it's more than that. It has to do with bringing jobs, quality jobs into our area, and also to bring businesses into our areas that we don't have to go outside of our area to go shopping, or outside of our area to get gas, or outside of our area to just live. And that's what we have to do. We shouldn't have to go from one end of the county to the other to just make a decent wage. So we need to also look at bringing quality jobs in this area and encouraging businesses to stay in this area and not move out like Publix has done outside of there's literally a black hole in this area in Pine Hills where these businesses have moved out of. And we shouldn't have to spend our hard-earned dollars to go outside of our area to go shop.
Okay. Thank you.
Jane, this is Chris.
Hey, Chris, welcome.
Sure. Good evening. I wanted to direct my question and comments directly to Mayor Demings. I don't know if he has a moment. I know he's engaged in a...
It will be recorded, and could you
Okay.
just give us your solution?
Well,
Just
in
give us your
addition,
solution.
to him and everybody who has an interest in getting this sales tax passed, it is my contention that it will fail miserably. And the reason for that is the revenue sources that were on the screens fall very short of recognizing what a lot of drivers are experiencing. It's already been brought up. Florida has the most tolls in the state of Florida. Florida has more tolls than any other state in the country. And Orange County, up until about a month ago, had the most miles of toll roads in the entire state. now surpassed by Miami-Dade County. In addition to that, Orange County has the most red light cameras compared to any other county in the entire state. These are all sources of revenue for the county, and money is coming out of the pockets of the drivers in this community. So just like Mayor Demings and many that are proposing to put this on the ballot and ask voters to approve an increase in taxes on them, our organization is putting forth a constitutional amendment to give Floridians the power to vote on tolls and to eliminate the red light cameras across the state. My contention is, if you want the voters in this community to trust you with increased revenue, I think it would go a long way if you would join in signing the petition, and those that are interested in getting this on the ballot, in signing the petition to trust the voters in Orange County and every county across the state as to whether they think that the current tolling situation should continue the way it is, whether we should raise tolls in the future, and eliminate the red light cameras that are putting our safety in danger at our intersections. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jane, this is David.
Hey,
Hang on,
David. Well,
David is our last individual coming tonight.
okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's two more.
I'm sorry. I
think
apologize.
there's two more
There's
behind
one
David.
more.
But
She's the last person.
David,
no.
you're third from the last.
David, he's second from the last. The other person is just stopping the line. All right, David.
My name is David Marks. I've been in the development business for over 30 years, involved with municipalities and private sector stuff. And
So what's your solution?
I'm excited about the mayor, his leadership. I'm concerned about. I think he's handed a difficult situation. We're a poster child of suburban sprawl. So my concern is that if we're going to take this $600 million and we're going to do some good stuff with it, we need to think about what the plan is moving forward. Mass transit doesn't work because of the suburban sprawl. If you go back to the history of mass transportation, it left the community when everybody had a car. There was no need for it any further. So that's why these systems aren't working. So if we're going to take this money and we're going to look at this, we've got a lot of environmental issues, and if we're really going to look at becoming a world-class city, we don't need to copy other cities that are doing a bad job. We've got huge environmental issues, and I'm not in support of this if we're going to do it and just do more of the same sprawl further out. We need to do some planning. We need to look at making a better balance between where people are living and working. And if you look at our model is based on the automobile. I live in Baldwin Park. If you go out to 436. You don't want to go across that street. You don't want to bike across it. You don't want to walk across it. It's dangerous, okay? And if you look at European cities, you go to England, they don't have that problem. Within the community, if you get out and you walk downtown or whatever, you're not dealing with 50-mile-an-hour traffic. So we need to think about our planning model, and what we're doing is if we want to be a world-class city, and not just try to do what Atlanta is doing or LA is doing and so forth. And I think that's critical. But we don't just need to be doing further suburban sprawl, and we need to figure out how to do some better planning. I think myregion.org was a great example, and we need to come up with a plan that's based on the region.
Well,
Thank you.
please,
Thank
if you have a solution or a certain city that you like, please tell our folks, because that will be part of the things that are looked into. So thank you. Thank you for the comments.
Last but not least, this is Dr. Jones.
Well, okay.
No, these are our folks here. These are our folks. Dr. Jones.
Dr. Jones, welcome.
Thank you. One of the things in talking about transportation, I noticed you didn't have a thing for public health because the two are inextricably linked. Lots of pollution from transportation impacts people's health. One of the issues the Orange County currently has is that the city of Orlando is destroying hundreds of acres of forest, especially in the African American community. These trees currently are providing protection for citizens and a public health service because they're absorbing a lot of that air pollution. But loss of these trees will mean an increase in air pollution in our communities, and African American communities are particularly susceptible to respiratory diseases, heart disease, and cancer, all of which are aggravated by high air pollution levels. And obviously transportation buses exacerbate that problem. So My solution is rein in the destruction of forests in Orange County, which includes lands in the city of Orlando and especially the Wekiva Study area. I've talked with Commissioner Siplin about that, and she has indicated that she was unable to stop this because it's a city of Orlando action. Teresa Jacobs also said the same thing. However, they're creating a problem that you're going to have to solve. And so some kind of way you all need to figure that out because they're causing, they're going to cause people in Orange County to become sick and sicker. The other thing is electric buses. Put these millions you're talking about, lobby for the money in terms of tourism. I think these tourists are using our roads, so I think they need to put some of the money from them needs to go toward the road construction if it's going to happen, since I'm guessing it is definitely going to happen. So use money from that to get more electric buses in the Lynx fleet so that we can decrease our air pollution problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. Great ideas.
That is
That's
all,
it?
Jane.
Okay.
Back to you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I'm going to call Mayor Demings back up here. He's going to wrap it up. He's a very popular man, as you can see on the side of the room. Everybody wants a little bit of him. But Mayor, if you would come up, please. And thank you, everyone, for your suggestions. And the folks will be along the walls here. If you feel shy and didn't want to come to the microphone, please go on over to the easels and give your suggestions.
All right. Thank you all for being here tonight. As you have seen, that this remains a significant issue for many people in our community. There is probably no silver bullet. There's no easy way to address the issues, the multitude of issues that we have as a community. I still remain focused on the fact that I believe that the option that we are bringing forward is the best option given the landscape that we operate within here today. You will have the opportunity, you're going to hear much more about it. What we're doing at this point, you haven't even seen the project list yet, but we're working with our municipalities to identify what those lists are and what should be on that particular list. I will tell you, though, that we can't get there without your objective input in that process. And that's what we're doing here today. There will be a full campaign to help educate you, where you'll get additional information about it. At the time, what we are saying is that the funds that would be generated by this tax will be new dollars to do additional things. Now, the cities and the county currently has program budgets to do roadway resurfacing and some of the other things that Ms. Bell Johnson talked about here earlier tonight. I don't want us to supplant, okay? We saw that in Florida with the Florida Lottery, and you all remember those days. It was supposed to be all about education. Well, what our great state did was they simply supplanted. Monies that were being budgeted through the normal state legislative processes for education, they shifted some funds, they reallocated funding. That is not what we're doing here. For anyone who thinks that we're not being transparent, I don't know when the last time you went anywhere and you had this kind of opportunity to interact and interject into a decision before it was ever made. So I do appreciate the fact that this was serious enough for you all to come out tonight. We're listening to you, and my commitment to you is that we will come back with a plan of action, and I expect you to hold us accountable if this passes to executing that plan of action, so that you know very precisely what we're going to spend your dollars on for this particular project. So thank you all tonight for indulging us for an extended period of time. Thank you to Orange TV and the staff that worked to make sure that we made this a success tonight. Give our sign interpreters, our language interpreters, a round of applause. They have worked very diligently tonight to keep up with all of the activity. Let me also acknowledge Mr. Byron Brooks, the county administrator, who really has the day-to-day operations for the county. And again, thank you, Commissioner Siplin. Commissioner Siplin serves on the Board of County Commission with me. There will be a future date in which many of the things that we talked about will come back before that board. We're doing it in the sunshine. You know, we're not, I said to you all earlier that what we're doing, our approach is different than what some of the other counties did. This is a grassroots effort. You are driving the ultimate plan that will be developed. We did not sit in my office or in county administration and come up with a plan of action and then come to you and say, let's sell this to you. This is the only option that you have. No, we're listening to you and we will perfect this plan of action. So thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you for allowing me to talk to different ones of you. I'll be around to carry on additional conversations. Have a good evening.